Rich people of Reddit who married someone significantly poorer. What surprised you about their previous way of life? Sandwiches. When I made him a sandwich I only put one thin slice of meat in it. He couldn't believe that was how I had sandwiches growing up. Growing up, we weren't allowed to just eat deli slices. It had to go between 2 pieces of bread because that would fill you up faster and save on meat costs. Your comment just opened up a huge window into my husband for me. He's always railing against me for letting the kids eat lunch meat slices straight from the bag, and I've always wondered what the big deal was. You just made me connect this to his poor childhood. I'm from a middle class family, but my wife's parents are near billionaires. 0.001%. She was shocked about many things that I consider cost of food and groceries at all. They will go to gourmet food stores and spend over $1,000 and say things like, well, it's for food. We are ingesting this stuff, it should be the best. Booking non-first class airfare on any long trip would be considered cruel and unusual punishment to her. No concerns about utilities, insurance premiums. No comparison shopping on routine things at all. Every vacation is the finest you can imagine, oftentimes bordering on ridiculous. Having so many upsells on packages and bespoke items that it's just wasteful. No concept of debt and understanding of how normal people live. My wife was shocked when I save things that get wet or muddy. She would just want to throw things like clothes and fine items in the trash away when they were just lightly bruised. We are very much in love and have shown each other a lot. She enjoys hanging with my salt of the earth mom more than her own family at this point. I like being spoiled here and there as well. It's a great mix. Edit. I've obviously adopted her standard of living. We met in medical school. She did a decent job of hiding her privilege. Our relationship grew out of our shared sense of humor and of course physical attraction. My partner and I are both poor, but different kinds of poor. She's never been homeless or not had enough to eat, while I have. She's extremely frugal and hates buying anything we don't need. I feel a desperate need to stock up if we have any extra money, and it's a fight for me not to fill our house with canned and dry goods in case we don't have enough money to buy food next month for some reason. It makes no sense, but my instinct is to hoard food because there just was never enough of it around growing up. It makes no sense, but my instinct is to hoard food because there just was never enough of it around growing up. That makes perfect sense. I didn't marry this woman, but when we started dating, she always wanted to chill at my place, never hers, which was fine. But she gained 35 pounds in just like a few months of dating. She was 100 pounds when we started dating. Not that it was a bad thing. 1. I'm a chubby man, and 2. I was just glad she wasn't pregnant. Anyway, turns out her family couldn't afford dinner sometimes. So suddenly she had a place to eat every night and gorged herself. I know 2 siblings who were starved by their father for years until CPS took them away and placed them with their biological mother. From there, they gained at least 100 pounds respectively and will not stop gorging themselves on food. At first, I didn't understand, but now that I'm older, I know. Food scarcity is traumatizing. This what happened to me in my last relationship. I pseudo moved in and gained about 20 pounds within a couple of months. Dinner every night was wild. I remember that I wasn't even hungry. I was just excited for food. One of my exes could pull in a lot of money, easily twice or thrice what I could. He was so incredibly bad at saving this money. Down to, say, setting himself up as a company to avoid paying higher rate of tax, but then paying a large amount each month to an accounting company to handle his taxes, which he'd do himself anyway, because he didn't trust them to get it right. He'd pay for taxes from one end of the city to another or hire cars, rather than use public transport. Flights cancelled, book new ones, never bother to claim back on insurance. Buy a sports car, wreck it, sell it for scrap. He'd work contracts and then take time off to work on his own startup, but spend every weekend just going out and buying drugs and booze. I thought it was really fun and wild at first. Haha, money really means nothing to you. But when we became a long-term couple, I started feeling like his mother. Man, will you not just fill out the insurance paperwork? I had an ex that must have made 6 figures as a specialty electrician of some sort, but legitimately had no clue how much, because his work would pay for things for him. I have no idea how it all worked out, but his work paid for all of his lodging and reoccurring bills, cable, utilities, weekly maid service, so he had no idea how much any of that stuff was. Even after that, he ate out, drank, and smoked constantly, had multiple state-of-the-art entertainment systems, played hockey, had Yankees season tickets, $10k plus, and kept envelopes of cash from cashed paychecks around his house. I asked once how he does his taxes. Company handled it. Edit. Oh. And had multiple DUIs where he, or the company, paid for a lawyer and then did at least one of those rehab programs where you're monitored and drug tested constantly. I can't imagine any of that was cheap. My cousin has a setup sorta like this, but it's BC. He started with the company when it was in its infancy and now it's huge, so they take care of him BC of how much work he's done. Same trade and pretty sure same type of job too. Now he's a part owner or investor, so it's on a bigger level now. He's incredibly practical though. The largest newspaper in the state did a puff piece on him and he legitimately had no idea why it was a big deal. They still live in the same house and keep the same lifestyle for the most part. He's a good guy. I'm not rich at all, but my husband came from a very poor Mexican village. He told me he used to shower outside because there was no in-house plumbing and use leaves as toilet paper. I mean, there's poor, and there's my husband's previous life poor. He's been living in the US for 12 years now, but when we first met it was so interesting seeing life through his childlike eyes. Going to the cinema was a huge event for him. Heating food up in a microwave was a totally foreign concept, and staying at fancy hotels when we went on vacation was like whoa. I still see him surprised by things now and then, and it just reminds me how much I take my middle status class for granted. I'm from an upper middle class American family and my husband is from a poor Asian family. It is hard for me to wrap my head around how poor they really were when he was growing up. He told me about eating only rice with sugar for meals because they couldn't afford meat. They were probably living off less. That's $0.50 day for a family of 5 at times. I'm Southeast Asian as well. Rice, soy sauce, eggs and a little vegetables go a long way. I know this is not the point you were making, but reading those ingredients just made my mouth water for fried rice. Hamburger helper. She hates it because it would be her meal 5x a week growing up. I had never even seen HH before I went to college and love that stuff. 10 for $10 deals are awesome. My foster daughter was the same way with pasta. She ate so much of it before we got her that she hated it. The first meal I made for her on her first night with us, pasta. She didn't say a word and ate her dinner, but later I found out she didn't like pasta because of how much of it she had eaten before. I always took her grocery shopping so she could pick out stuff she liked. After that, she was shocked when she found out Red Delicious apples weren't the only variety out there. I think she overdosed on Honeycrisp apples when I first introduced them to her. Edit. Since many people are asking how she's doing, I'm making this edit. I got her through high school and college. She graduated college last year. She's going to teach for a couple of years before going back for her master's. She applied for a teaching job and she literally sent this a few minutes ago. Also, thank you for the kind words about fostering. I can say it was a truly rewarding experience. I fell in love with my uni best friend who really didn't have any money. When I got a job, for my birthday I decided to plan a holiday and offered to bring him along. It didn't even occur to me that this was his first ever holiday he'd ever taken. His family could never afford it growing up, and he'd never really thought to do it as an adult. I really feel this one. My family did maybe 2 vacation type trips in 18 years of growing up, and both of those were to places relatively close by, few hours of driving. If it wasn't for a couple of school sponsored trips, I probably would have never left my region of the US until I was an adult, and I still haven't left the country. I remember in college, there was a school sponsored trip for a class I was taking that involved air travel. The look on another student's face when I told him I'd never flown before was absolutely priceless. Now, as an adult with a middle-class white-collar job, it still boggles my mind to listen to coworkers talk about all the trips and cruises they take and talk about flying to Disneyland for just a weekend getaway. I can't get myself into the mindset of someone who can actually afford to travel now, because it just hasn't been a part of my life at all. When the family had people over for dinner, if they ended the prayer before the meal with FHB, Amen, it was a signal to let the children know that they don't have enough food for everyone, so take smaller servings and let the guests get a regular serving. FHB equals family, hold back. They were always generous to their friends and didn't let their lack of funds embarrass themselves when doing so. I grew up poor too, but we never had any guests round for dinner. FHB, my heart was just thinking the same thing. My family was considered antisocial. It wasn't because we didn't like socializing or going to events, it's because we couldn't afford to. And if mum and dad organized dinners they planned months beforehand, scraped every cent together to pay for it. My ex was stunned when I told her I've only ever had one birthday party, 21st, because mum and dad had no money. Not rich but with a partner who was raised by a teen mom and grew up poor. Sometimes I just want rice and vegetables for dinner. That's a no from her. She won't go back. My dad was the opposite, grew up quite poor and built a business up and ended up doing quite well. Still eats like there's only 25 cents in his checking account. Left alone, he would gladly eat ramen every day and his go-to meal is rice porridge. We went to Osteria Franciscana in Modena a few years ago, literally named the best restaurant in the world. We all went for the tasting menu, but he asked to order a la carte, and he wanted to order just buttered fettuccine. He only agreed to the tasting menu when they insisted that the whole table had to do it if some of us were doing it. He'll even insist on eating things that have been burned or drink milk that's just starting to turn. My father grew up poor too. He wasn't stingy, but we didn't grow up with lots of new clothes or dinners out. Even a request for McDonald's was met with a reminder that we had perfectly good food at home. Some of that has stuck with me. I resist upgrading my phone until I can no longer get apps for it. I buy the cheapest laptop that will do the minimum that I need. I buy used cars. My spouse thinks I'm crazy and teases me about it, saying I'm just like my father and grandfather. But I'm not like my grandfather. He once told my cousin not to waste money on shoelaces. He could just cut a strip of leather from what was in the garage. I at least buy shoelaces, but unlike my grandfather, I probably won't die a millionaire. I grew up super poor. Used computer repair to fund my computer hardware addiction. Don't buy cheap laptops, they are annoying. Buy used business class. I got my mom a HP 840G2 a while back and now I wanna replace my ThinkPad with one. She lived in the desert without air conditioning. Damn, that reminds me, when we were kids, my dad got an AC for free from one of his jobs, but we were almost never allowed to use it because of the electric bill. Probably only got to use it if it was like 100 degrees out. I was with a girl for a while who grew up in a pretty broken home. Still surprises me just how bad her spending habits are. She racks up credit card debt like it's nothing. Same. Had an ex like that, and she told me that she needed me to hold on to the money she earned because she would buy stupid shit with it. Her family also spent money stupidly. Her mom would spend every day sleeping until whenever, smoking about a pack a day, and drive about 5 to 7 miles round trip in a Ford pickup truck for her twice daily coffee milkshake from Starbucks. Eventually they had to file for bankruptcy, and she was still dumb with money. She would literally shop at the convenience store for groceries, 2-pack toilet paper for $1, other random things for 4x the amount. My husband grew up in a family where they were comfortable, but on a strict budget. 6 kids and mom on disability. My family had no budget. One day we were at the grocery store and he always insists on walking up and down every aisle. I finally lost it because he was taking so long and asked him why he did it. Growing up we could only spend $100 a week on groceries for all of us. I always had to put what I wanted back because we couldn't afford it. Now I can afford whatever I want. so I like to look at everything I could have. Took him 10 years to tell me this. I felt like a terrible person. Edit. Thanks for the silver kind homies. My dad is a successful business owner now with several houses and multiple sources of income. But he grew up dirt poor when he had parents and became even poorer when he was out on his own at 14. Think sleeping on the floor of a gas station men's room. To this day he will take a small handful of cereal out of his bowl before he pours milk in and put it back in the box, so he'll always have some cereal for later. Over 40 years later, and the pain and worry of growing up poor without luxuries, like breakfast cereal, still affect him. Growing up without money does shitty things to people. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. My so said today I made rent, meaning today I've earned enough / accumulated enough to pay the rent, and I realized that this is a monthly accomplishment to someone with no fixed income / salary. Making rent is a huge relief. The other horrible part of having unpredictable income is that when you try to get your financial shit together, all the budgeting advice assumes that you get the same amount each week, or at least close enough to work off an average. It made me feel really hopeless when I was there. More of a funny incident, but I was the poor one. My husband, at the time still boyfriend, took me out to a very nice restaurant. Waiter asked if I want pepper on my Caesar salad that was just made tableside. I said sure, and he goes about it. Thing is, I didn't know you had to say stop. My husband slowly realizes this, but decides to see it play out. He did eventually say that I need to say stop. I just thought a Caesar had this way, as it was my first time even eating a salad that wasn't just iceberg and ranch dressing. It still tasted fine, just a little bit too much pepper, haha. Honestly, food insecurity. When we were first married, she would get visibly uneasy if the food in the house was running low. She never overate or anything, she was just always concerned about it. A lot of times when she was younger, she went hungry. On the humorous side though, she hates camping. Her answer is always the same. I camped because it was fun. She camped because they couldn't afford hotels. For me, my love of camping started from growing up poor. The only family vacations my single mom and brother and I had were family reunion events several states away. It involved long road trips in a shitty car with no account, but we got to camp in tents and get a break from reality. We also ate a lot better over a campfire than me making hamburger helper for my brother while my mom went to bed early. She worked hard to support us and battled with depression untreated for years until she could afford medication. Those trips were good for all of us. My wife was born and raised in the Soviet Union. She still goes crazy for fresh fruit like it's the most extravagant luxury. The prevailing mindset in his community growing up that insurance was something only rich people had. Not health insurance, mind you. Well, not just health insurance. Auto insurance. Going without it was a way of life for most everyone he knew. My so has to constantly remind me that I can go to the doctor whenever I need to instead of just hoping I don't die. In California it has been illegal to drive without auto insurance for I think my entire life. I grew up poor and my mom was constantly getting pulled over for expired tags and then not having insurance. Edit. RIP inbox, and to anyone else who wants to DM me to tell me where else in the world driving without insurance is illegal, or tell me I'm an asshole because my mom was poor / I'm an asshole because insurance is so important. Just keep fucking scrolling, I can't take another 8 hours of this shit. I'm on the other side as I married a girl from a rich family, although we both earn the same, and I tend to worry about money / savings / future. Through the years I have realized that she worries less about it and still saves more and spends less than me. I feel like coming from a lower middle class family makes me think about saving more, but at the same time I spend money on things as I could not have them all before I got my own job. I'm so like this. I think and plan and budget, but when my paycheck comes it is so hard to not spend it all on going out to eat or other frivolous things because I could never have those small luxuries before. She and her mother lived with her grandfather to not be homeless because her grandfather owned a house. She was putting community college payments on her credit card and building debt with it. I paid off her credit cards when we were dating, and she cried from me being so nice. It was only like $1,300. I bought a condo, then we got married, then we bought a house. I never really considered myself rich until I started dating her and learned that a trip to Wendy's was a treat. I grew up middle class, and we are currently middle class. Heh. I'm not well off, but my stepfather is. I was raised by a single mom who spent money on everything, and bills were always behind. She just couldn't manage her money at all. In her 50s she met and married a multi-millionaire. We are in middle America, so that goes further than maybe in a lot of areas. They have given themselves $10,000 a month budget to live on, living on interest, own their home. Anyway, once my mom met him, and they got all her finance situated and paid off, she won't spend a penny. He spends like it is going out of style. He has actually begged me to take her shopping to get clothes and accessories. She won't do it. She spent more when she was a single mom with nothing. It makes no sense to me. At least buy a new outfit. She is hell-bent to not use a penny of his money. They barely even have any groceries. If they have anything, it is because he buys it for them. She is a retired nurse that gets a retirement and SS, but she won't spend anything. She lives poorer now than any other time in her life. This sounds less like a financial issue and more like she's trying to preserve her pride. She knows that people will think she's a gold digger if she spends his money, so she's going to the opposite extreme and refusing to benefit from any of it. Edit. Maybe anxiety is a better way to describe it than pride. Okay guys, don't forget to hit that sub button, also ring that shiny bell, like and share too, and check out other videos in our channel.